The emergency door chime cut through Cole Thatcher's sleep like a plasma torch through hull plating, sharp, insistent, and carrying the unmistakable tone that meant something had gone catastrophically wrong somewhere on the ship. He jolted upright in his bunk, heart hammering, mind immediately cataloging disasters: hull breach, life support failure, fire in the cargo bay, engine malfunction. The scenarios scrolled through his engineering-trained brain with practiced efficiency as he stumbled toward the door, not bothering with more than the sleep pants and shirt he'd crashed in after his maintenance shift ended at midnight. The Meridian Dawn was 3 weeks into a 6-month journey carrying colonists and cargo toward Haven's Reach, a settlement world on the edge of explored space. Cole had signed on as maintenance engineer because the pay was excellent, and because staying on Earth had meant dealing with the wreckage of a relationship that imploded and a career that was going exactly nowhere. 6 months in space, fixing things that broke, avoiding complicated feelings. It had seemed like a good idea at the time. The door chimed again, more insistent. Cole slapped the control panel, and the door hissed open to reveal not the crisis he'd expected, but something far more confusing. Sierra stood in the corridor. Sierra, his Terk counterpart in environmental systems, who worked the opposite shift and with whom he'd exchanged maybe 50 words total since departure. Sierra, who was always impeccably put together, her uniform perfectly maintained, her long tapered ears expressing careful neutrality, her skin maintaining the steady blue-gray that Terk biology defaulted to in professional settings. Except tonight she looked like she'd been through a disaster. Her uniform was disheveled, stained with something that gleamed wetly under the corridor lighting. Her skin was flickering through distressed colors, pale yellow to greenish to something darker that Cole's limited knowledge of Terk biology suggested was very bad. She was trembling, her ears flat against her skull in an expression he'd learned meant acute distress, and her eyes were wide with something that looked like panic barely contained. "Sierra." Cole's voice came out rough with sleep and confusion. "Are you okay? What happened?" She took a shaking breath. When she spoke, her standard was heavily accented but clear, each word carefully chosen. "I apologize for the intrusion at this hour. I have a problem, a situation of urgency." Another breath and her skin flickered through more distressed patterns. "The environmental systems bay. There was an accident, coolant line rupture. I was sprayed with chemical compound." She gestured at her stained uniform, at her skin that was definitely showing signs of irritation now that Cole looked closer. "It is toxic to Terk biology. I need to be cleaned. Thoroughly. Immediately. Within the hour." Cole's sleep-fogged brain struggled to process this information. The med bay. Medical officer is in cryo for the journey. Automated systems not equipped for Terk-specific chemical contamination protocols. "My quarters decontamination systems are offline. I was performing maintenance when the rupture occurred." Her voice was getting tighter, more strained. "I need water pressure and temperature controls your human shower facilities provide. I need—" She stopped and her skin went through a particularly violent color shift. "I need assistance. The contamination is on my back, areas I cannot properly reach myself. Time is critical. Within the hour or I will develop severe dermal reaction that will require medical intervention and will be—" Her voice cracked slightly. "Extremely painful." The pieces clicked together in Cole's head with uncomfortable clarity. She needed help cleaning chemical contamination off her back. She was asking him to help her. Him, specifically in his quarters, in his shower, right now. Every professional boundary alarm in Cole's head started screaming simultaneously. "Sierra, I'm not sure." He was babbling. He knew he was babbling. But his brain had apparently decided that sleep deprivation plus wildly inappropriate request equaled complete verbal shutdown. "There must be someone else, someone more qualified, maybe another Terk." "You are the only human engineer on my shift rotation," Sierra interrupted, and there was desperation creeping into her voice now. "The only one I have worked with enough to trust with this. Other Terk on board are diplomatic escorts who do not have technical knowledge of human facilities. Her skin was darkening in patches where the contamination had touched her, and Cole could see her fighting not to scratch at them. I understand this is uncomfortable request, extremely uncomfortable, but I am out of options and time is critical, please. The please did it. The raw need in her voice, the visible distress in her skin patterns, the way she was trembling while trying to maintain composure, all of it cut through Cole's discomfort and hit his baseline human instinct to help someone in pain. "Okay," he heard himself say. "Okay, yes, come in. Let me bathrooms this way." The relief that flooded Sierra's face was profound. Her skin shifted toward grateful blue-green, and she practically stumbled into his quarters. Cole's brain was still screaming about protocols and appropriateness, and how this was going to look if anyone found out. But his hands were already moving on autopilot, grabbing towels from storage, adjusting water temperature in his shower, trying to remember everything he'd read about Terk biology during pre-voyage training. "Rules," he said, more to himself than to her. "We need ground rules. I'll focus on contaminated areas only. You'll direct me on proper cleaning technique. We're both going to pretend this never happened once it's over. Agreed?" "Agreed," Sierra said immediately. She was already unfastening her uniform with shaking hands, and Cole deliberately looked away, focusing on setting up the bathroom like it was any other technical problem. Towels here. Cleaning solution there. Water pressure calibrated to specifications. Just a maintenance task. Just helping a colleague with an emergency. Absolutely nothing weird about this situation, except it was weird. Profoundly, uncomfortably weird. And Cole had a feeling the next hour was going to be the longest of his life. Sierra stepped into his bathroom wrapped in one of his towels, her contaminated uniform left in the corridor outside his quarters in a sealed bag. Her skin was showing more irritation now, angry dark patches spreading where the chemical had touched her. Cole could see her trying not to react to the pain, but her ears were flat against her skull, and her breathing was carefully controlled. "Okay," Cole said, trying for clinical competence and landing somewhere near barely contained panic. "Tell me what you need me to do." Sierra sat on the stool Cole had pulled into the shower enclosure, her back toward him, the towel pooled around her waist. Her skin was different from human skin. Cole couldn't help but notice, though he tried desperately not to stare. It had a slight iridescence, a texture that shifted with temperature and emotion, and right now it was mottled with chemical contamination that made his stomach turn. "The contamination is primarily across my shoulders and upper back," Sierra explained, her voice tight with controlled pain. "You will need to apply cleaning solution. There, that container, yes, and work it carefully across affected areas. Terk skin is more sensitive than human to both touch and temperature. You must be gentle but thorough. Remaining contamination will cause progressive dermal damage." Cole picked up the cleaning solution with hands that were definitely not shaking. Absolutely not. He was a professional and this was fine, and everything was completely normal. "Gentle but thorough," he repeated. "Right, okay, I'm going to start now." He applied the solution to a clean cloth and carefully touched it to Sierra's shoulder. She flinched, and he jerked back immediately. "Sorry, did I hurt you?" "No," Sierra's voice was strained. "The touch is unfamiliar, please continue." Cole continued, working the cleaning solution across her shoulders with as much clinical detachment as he could muster. Except it was impossible to be completely detached when you were this close to someone, when you could see them fighting not to tremble, when every careful touch made them flinch slightly despite trying to stay still. "You're doing well," Sierra said quietly after several minutes of tense silence. "The contamination is lifting. Continue along the spine, please. Lower. Yes, there." Cole worked in silence, following her directions, trying to focus on the technical aspects of contamination removal rather than the intimacy of the situation. But it was impossible to ignore entirely. This was someone's back he was cleaning, someone's skin under his hands, someone who was trusting him with vulnerability that clearly cost her something. "I apologize," Sierra said suddenly. "This is inappropriate situation, I know this. The request was inappropriate, but I had nowhere else to turn." "It's fine," Cole said automatically, though it wasn't fine. It was deeply strange and uncomfortable and somehow also the most real human, or human alien, interaction he'd had in months. "You needed help, I'm helping. That's what we do, right? Help each other." "Not like this." Sierra's voice was almost a whisper now. "Not among my people. Physical care is performed by family or extremely close companions. Not colleagues, not near strangers. That I came to you speaks to my desperation, not my comfort with the situation." Cole paused his cleaning, considering her words. "Do you want me to stop? We can find another way." "No." Sierra's response was immediate and sharp. "Please, no, I need this, I need help. I am simply acknowledging the difficulty of accepting it." She took a shaking breath. "Terk culture values independence, self-sufficiency. Needing assistance with something so personal is challenging for me." "Yeah, well, human culture values personal space and not being naked in a colleague's shower. So I think we're both operating outside our comfort zones here," Cole said, and was surprised when Sierra made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Yes, I suppose we are." She was quiet for a moment while Cole continued cleaning chemical residue from between her shoulder blades. "Thank you for agreeing despite discomfort. Thank you for trusting me enough to ask." Cole rinsed the cloth and applied more cleaning solution, even if asking cost you something. They fell into silence again, but it was less tense now. More like shared acknowledgement of mutual awkwardness rather than individual suffering. Cole worked methodically, following Sierra's directions, cleaning contamination from areas she absolutely could not reach herself. Along her spine, across her shoulder blades, from the space between her ears where chemical had apparently splashed. "We're both lonely," Sierra said suddenly, and Cole almost dropped the cleaning cloth. "What?" "I have been observing. It is my nature to observe." Sierra's voice was soft, distant. "You signed onto 6-month voyage alone. No family joining colonist groups. No connections visible on board. You work solitary shifts and take meals alone. You are running from something on Earth. And she paused. "I volunteered for this assignment because diplomatic escort duty meant leaving homeworld where I fit nowhere. Working with humans is isolating. We have superficial similarities but profound differences. I am lonely in ways I did not expect." Cole didn't know what to say to that. The honesty of it was startling, the vulnerability even more so. People didn't usually admit to loneliness so directly. They danced around it, joked about it, hid it under layers of "fine, I'm fine." "Yeah," he said finally. "Yeah, I'm lonely too. Failed relationship back home. Career going nowhere. Figured 6 months in space would give me time to figure out what comes next, or at least time to stop thinking about what came before." He carefully rinsed contamination from along her spine. "Turns out space is lonely even when you're surrounded by people." "Yes," Sierra agreed quietly, "exactly that." They continued in silence, but it was different now. Less awkward, more companionable. Like they'd accidentally stumbled into genuine conversation in the middle of the bizarre situation, and somehow it made the situation less bizarre. When Cole finally finished cleaning the last traces of contamination and Sierra's skin began returning to healthy blue-gray, they both sat in exhausted silence. Cole handed her a dry towel. She wrapped it around herself and turned to face him, and her expression was complicated: gratitude, embarrassment, something else he couldn't identify. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I know this was uncomfortable, more than uncomfortable. If you prefer, I will not mention it to anyone. This can remain between us." Cole surprised himself by shaking his head. "I don't mind if you mention it. I mean, I'd rather not have everyone knowing I gave you a shower at 3 in the morning because that sounds way weirder without context. But I'm not ashamed of helping you. You needed help. I helped, that's all." Something in Sierra's expression softened, her skin shifting toward warmer tones. I was terrified to ask, she admitted. Terrified you would refuse. Terrified you would judge me for needing help with something so personal. Terrified you would make me feel worse about vulnerability. Her ears tilted in what Cole was learning meant sincerity. The fact that you helped without judgment, with only careful competence and awkward kindness. It means more than you perhaps realize. Cole felt his face heat with embarrassment he hoped she wouldn't interpret correctly. It's fine. I'm just glad you're okay, that the contamination is cleaned properly, that you're not going to have a painful dermal reaction. Because you helped, because you were willing despite discomfort. Sierra stood, still clutching the towel, and moved toward his bathroom door. I should return to my quarters, rest. Allow my skin to fully recover, but Cole. She paused, using his first name for the first time. Thank you, truly. After she left, properly uniformed in emergency spare clothing from ship stores, skin patterns stable and healthy, Cole lay awake in his bunk staring at the ceiling. His bathroom smelled like Terk cleaning solution, and his hands still felt the phantom texture of skin that wasn't human. The whole situation had been bizarre and uncomfortable and profoundly strange. And somehow, despite all of that, it had also been the most genuine human, or human alien, connection Cole had experienced in months. He fell asleep thinking that maybe loneliness wasn't insurmountable. Maybe connection could happen even in the strangest circumstances. Maybe trust could be built in midnight emergencies and vulnerable requests that could have ended badly, but didn't. Maybe he'd found something on this voyage after all. The aftermath of that night changed things in subtle ways Cole didn't expect. Sierra didn't avoid him. If anything, she seemed to seek him out more. During shift overlaps, she'd appear in the engineering break room with 2 containers of what she called warming beverage, but which tasted like coffee's weird alien cousin. She'd ask about his work, share stories about Terk engineering philosophy that was apparently 90%. If it's not clean, it doesn't work. And 10%. Have you tried hitting it with a calibrated impact tool? Cole found himself looking forward to these encounters. Sierra was funny in a dry, understated way that took him weeks to recognize as humor. She was brilliant. Her understanding of environmental systems made Cole feel like he was stumbling through maintenance with a broken manual. And she was surprisingly easy to talk to once the ice of that bizarre midnight encounter had been broken. 3 weeks after the contamination incident, Sierra requested transfer to Cole's shift rotation. The official reason was improved professional collaboration and resource optimization. Everyone accepted this at face value because it made logistical sense. Having both environmental and maintenance engineers on the same shift reduced response time to system failures. But Cole knew the real reason. She wanted to work with someone she trusted, someone who'd proven himself capable of kindness in uncomfortable circumstances, someone who wouldn't make her feel weak for needing help. They became an efficient team. Sierra would diagnose environmental system issues with the kind of precision that came from intimate knowledge of every pipe and valve on the ship. Cole would execute repairs with hands that could fit into spaces that Terk anatomy couldn't reach. They developed their own shorthand communication, a mix of technical terminology and inside jokes that made other crew members give them confused looks. You know, everyone thinks we're sleeping together, Cole mentioned one day during a particularly complex repair to the air recycling system. Sierra's skin flashed amused gold. Let them think that. Reality is stranger and more embarrassing. Yeah, but also kind of nice. She looked at him, her ears tilting in curiosity. Nice. Having someone who actually understands, who doesn't judge, who. Cole struggled for words while elbow-deep in a maintenance panel. Who sees you at your worst and still wants to be around you. Sierra's skin shifted through several colors before settling on warm amber. Yes, she said quietly. Nice is acceptable word for that. 4 weeks after the incident, Cole noticed Sierra's skin flickering with distress patterns during a routine maintenance check. She was trying to hide it, focusing intently on her work, but the signs were obvious once you knew what to look for. "Hey," Cole said carefully, "you okay?" Sierra's ears flattened slightly. "I am functional." "That's not what I asked." She was silent for a long moment. Then so quietly Cole almost didn't hear. "I have been having recurring anxiety. About contamination. Irrational fear that something is still wrong with my skin, that we missed something during cleaning. It affects my sleep, my ability to focus." Cole set down his tools. "You want me to check?" Sierra's head snapped up, her skin flashing surprised silver. "What?" "Visual examination. Professional and clinical. Confirm there's no residual contamination. It might help ease the anxiety." Cole shrugged, trying to make it sound casual despite his heart rate picking up. "I mean, only if you want, no pressure." Sierra stared at him for several seconds. Then slowly she nodded. "That would, yes, thank you." They went to Cole's quarters after their shift ended. Neutral territory now, associated with help rather than emergency. Sierra removed her uniform jacket with practiced efficiency, exposing her back, and Cole examined her skin carefully in the better lighting of his quarters. Checking color patterns, texture, the slight iridescence that indicated healthy dermal function. "Everything looks perfect," he said after several minutes. "No discoloration, no residual irritation, no signs of damage at all. You're completely clean, Sierra, completely healthy." The relief that flooded her expression was profound. Her skin shifted through grateful colors, and her ears expressed something that might have been joy or might have been simple peace. "Thank you," she said. "Logic tells me I am fine, but having you verify, having someone I trust confirm safety." She trailed off. "It helps, more than it logically should." "Anxiety isn't logical," Cole said. "If it was, we'd all just think ourselves out of it. Sometimes you need external confirmation. There's no shame in that." This became their pattern. Every few weeks, when Sierra's anxiety about contamination spiked, triggered by chemical smells in the environmental bay or rough textures against her skin, or just the random firing of trauma responses, she'd ask Cole to check. Just a quick visual examination, confirmation that everything was fine, reassurance from someone she trusted. And through these repeated moments of vulnerability, their friendship deepened into something Cole didn't quite have words for. Not romance. The biological and cultural differences made that complicated at best. But profound trust. The kind of bond that forms when someone sees you at your most vulnerable and responds with competence and care rather than judgment. As the Meridian Dawn approached Haven's Reach in month 5 of the voyage, Cole and Sierra found themselves in his quarters one evening, reviewing maintenance schedules for the landing procedure. The conversation drifted from professional to personal as it often did now. "What will you do after landing?" Sierra asked. "Settle on Haven's Reach, continue with another voyage?" Cole had been thinking about this question for weeks. "Honestly, I'm considering staying on the ship for another contract. There's nothing tying me to Haven's Reach specifically, and the work here." He gestured vaguely at the quarters around them. "It's good work, good people. I'd rather stay." Sierra's skin flashed surprised gold, then settled into pleased amber. "I have been thinking similarly. My diplomatic assignment technically ends at Haven's Reach, but there are opportunities for environmental specialists on continuing voyages. The ship will depart for another settlement run after brief layover." They looked at each other, the implications hanging in the air between them. "We could both sign on for the next journey," Cole said carefully, "if we wanted." "If we wanted," Sierra agreed, but her skin was brightening with obvious pleasure at the suggestion. "It would mean more time working together, more maintenance shifts, more environmental emergencies at 3 in the morning." Cole was smiling now. "More terrible alien coffee." "Warming beverage," Sierra corrected with mock seriousness. "And yes, all of those things which sound." She paused, her ears expressing something vulnerable. "Pleasant." "Those things sound pleasant." "Yeah," Cole agreed, "they do." On their final night before landing at Haven's Reach, Sierra appeared at Cole's quarters at a reasonable hour for once, carrying 2 containers of Terk warming beverage, and wearing an expression that Cole had learned meant she was nervous but determined. "I wanted to thank you," she said. "Properly, not in the middle of emergency or anxiety episode. Just, thank you for 6 months of patience and kindness and willingness to help despite personal discomfort." Cole accepted the beverage and gestured for her to sit. "You don't need to thank me for basic human decency." "I disagree. Basic human decency is surprisingly rare. What you provided was exceptional human decency." Sierra's skin shifted through thoughtful colors. "Among my people, there is custom of gift-giving to those who provide significant help, but I do not, because sometimes trust is built not in grand gestures, but in small, uncomfortable moments when someone needs help, and another person chooses kindness over convenience. Sometimes the best relationships start with bizarre midnight requests that could have ended in disaster, but instead became foundations for genuine understanding." Cole learned this truth at 3 in the morning in his bathroom, carefully cleaning chemical contamination from someone who trusted him despite having every reason not to. And Sierra learned that asking for help didn't mean weakness. Sometimes it meant strength, and sometimes it meant finding exactly the person you needed even if you didn't know you were looking. The Meridian Dawn departed Havens Reach 3 weeks after landing, beginning another 6-month voyage to another settlement world. In the engineering section, Cole Thatcher worked his maintenance shift alongside Sierra, his Terk counterpart who'd become his closest friend, through the strangest circumstances imaginable. And if sometimes, late at night when anxiety spiked or memories surfaced, Sierra would appear at his door with that same vulnerable expression, "Can you check, please?" Cole would always say yes, would always set aside whatever he was doing, would always provide that confirmation of safety that logic couldn't give her. Because that's what friends did, what people who genuinely cared about each other did. The routine became comfortable in its repetition. Sierra would arrive at his quarters, usually with some pretense. "I detected unusual environmental readings near your section, wanted to verify systems." But they both knew what she was really asking. Cole would check her skin patterns, confirm healthy coloration and texture, sometimes just rest his hand against her shoulder blade for a few seconds in silent reassurance. "You know," Cole said one evening during one of these checks, 6 months into their second voyage together, "I've been thinking about that first night. How terrified you must have been, not just of the contamination but of asking for help." Sierra's ears tilted in acknowledgement. "I was convinced you would refuse, or worse, agree but make me feel ashamed for needing assistance." Her skin shifted to contemplative blue. Terk culture emphasizes self-sufficiency to a degree that can be isolating. Admitting vulnerability is seen as weakness. "That's kind of messed up," Cole said bluntly. "Yes," Sierra's laugh was soft. "It is, but you showed me alternative. That vulnerability can be strength. That asking for help can lead to connection rather than judgment." She turned to face him, her expression serious. "You changed how I think about trust, Cole, about letting people in, about accepting that needing others is not failure." Cole felt his face heat with embarrassment at the earnest gratitude in her voice. "I just did what anyone decent would do." "No, most people, even decent ones, would have helped once out of obligation and then maintained distance after. You chose continued proximity, repeated assistance, friendship despite its origin in embarrassing circumstances." Sierra's skin glowed warm amber. "That is exceptional, not ordinary." The conversations during these check-ins deepened over months. They talked about their pasts, Cole's failed relationship that had ended when his partner decided she wanted someone more ambitious, more present, more something he wasn't. Sierra's isolation on her homeworld, where her interest in other species marked her as strange, where her willingness to work closely with aliens made her suspect. "We're both running," Cole observed one night. "That's what this is. We took jobs on ships traveling away from everything we knew, because staying felt impossible." But perhaps we stopped running, Sierra suggested. Perhaps we found place to rest, to belong. On a ship that's literally always moving. Yes, sometimes home is not location. Sometimes home is person who understands. Her ears express something vulnerable. You are my home, Cole, this friendship, this strange, improbable connection. It is where I belong. Cole's throat tightened with emotion he wasn't sure how to express. Yeah, he managed. Same, you're my home too. 3 months into their third voyage together, Cole and Sierra had become fixtures of the Meridian Dawn at this point. The engineer and environmental specialist who were always together, who developed such efficient collaboration that they could repair complex systems with minimal verbal communication. Something shifted. They were working on a particularly stubborn atmospheric processor that kept failing at irregular intervals. Cole was wedged into a maintenance shaft that was absolutely not designed for human proportions, while Sierra monitored diagnostics from outside. The coupling is corroded, Cole called out, his voice echoing in the confined space. I can see it but can't quite reach. Can you fit your hand through this panel? Attempting. There was a pause, then Sierra's hand appeared through the access panel, her longer fingers reaching toward the problematic coupling. Her hand brushed against Cole's, and he felt that now familiar warmth of her skin, slightly warmer than human normal. Little to the left, Cole directed. Up there, can you grip it? Yes, rotating counterclockwise. Perfect, okay, applying sealant now. They worked in tandem, hands moving around each other in the confined space. Communication reduced to minimal words because they'd done this enough times to anticipate each other's movements. When the repair was complete and they extracted themselves from the maintenance shaft, they were both covered in grime and breathing hard from exertion. We make good team, Sierra observed, cleaning lubricant from her hands with the sanitizing wipes she always carried. Yeah, Cole grinned at her. Who would have thought? Human engineer and Terk environmental specialist, bonding over midnight bathroom emergencies and corroded couplings. Sierra's skin flashed amused gold. When you phrase it that way, it sounds deeply ridiculous. It is deeply ridiculous. That's what makes it perfect. They walked back toward their quarters together. Their quarters were adjacent now, had been since the second voyage when Sierra requested transfer to the cabin next to Cole's, citing convenience for shift coordination. And the comfortable silence between them felt like contentment. Cole, Sierra said as they reached her door, there is something I have been wanting to discuss. The serious tone made Cole pause. Okay, what's up? My contract ends in 4 months when we reach the next settlement hub. I have been offered position in Terk Diplomatic Corps that would require return to homeworld. She watched his face carefully. It is significant advancement, leadership role, something I should want. Cole's stomach dropped, but he kept his expression neutral. Should want, but don't. But do not. Sierra's ears tilted in frustrated confusion, because accepting would mean leaving this ship, leaving this work, leaving. She trailed off, but the implication was clear. Leaving us, Cole finished quietly, leaving this friendship. Yes. Sierra's skin flickered through uncertain patterns, and I find I value this friendship more than career advancement, more than returning to world where I never quite belonged. But turning down such opportunity seems illogical. Screw logic, Cole said with more vehemence than he intended. You're finally happy. I can see it. Your skin patterns are healthier, your stress levels are lower. You actually laugh now instead of that careful diplomatic smile you used to use all the time. Why would you give that up for a job you don't even want? Because it is what I am supposed to want, what Terk society says should matter. And what does Sierra say should matter? She was quiet for a long moment, her skin cycling through contemplative colors. Then softly, this friendship. This strange little life we have built on ship that is always moving, work that challenges me, companion who understands me, home that is not place but person. She looked up at him. Is that foolish? To choose connection over advancement? If it's foolish, then I'm foolish too, Cole said. Because I've had 3 different job offers in the past year. Better pay, better positions, all on stations or settlements that would mean leaving the Meridian Dawn. And I've turned them all down because leaving would mean losing this, losing you, and I'm not willing to do that. Sierra's skin blazed bright amber, then shifted to something softer, warmer. You turned down opportunities to stay. Yeah, because this, Cole gestured between them, encompassing their friendship, their partnership, the strange life they'd built together. This matters more than any job could matter. You matter more. The emotion in Sierra's expression was profound. I was afraid to tell you about the diplomatic corps offer. Afraid you would say I should take it, that I was being silly to value friendship over career. Then you don't know me as well as I thought, Cole said gently. I would never tell you to leave something that makes you happy, and you are happy here, right? Yes, Sierra's voice was certain now, strong. I am happy here, happier than I have been in years, perhaps happier than I have ever been. She smiled, that genuine expression that had taken months to appear and now came easily. I will decline the diplomatic corps position. I will renew my contract with Meridian Dawn. I will continue being environmental specialist who works too closely with maintenance engineer and has midnight anxiety checks and drinks terrible warming beverage. It's not terrible, Cole protested. It's just an acquired taste. It is terrible. You simply acquired taste for it because I brought it consistently. Sierra's amusement was obvious. But thank you for valuing this friendship as I do, for understanding that sometimes best choice is not most prestigious, but most fulfilling. They stood in the corridor outside her quarters, and the moment felt significant in ways Cole couldn't quite articulate. 2 people from different worlds, with different biology and different cultures, who'd found connection in the strangest circumstances and chosen to keep that connection despite every logical reason to let it go. Hey, Sierra. Cole said, yes. Thanks for having that contamination accident 18 months ago. I know that's a weird thing to be grateful for, but if it hadn't happened, we probably would have stayed polite strangers for the entire voyage. And I would have missed out on the best friendship I've ever had. Sierra's skin glowed bright gold, and her ears expressed pure joy. Then I too am grateful for contamination accident, for midnight emergency, for you saying yes despite discomfort. She reached out and squeezed his hand briefly, a gesture that had taken her months to become comfortable with, human-style physical affection being foreign to Terk culture. For you, Cole Thatcher, who chose kindness when you could have chosen convenience. 4 months later, when the Meridian Dawn docked at the settlement hub, Sierra formally declined the diplomatic corps position and signed another 3-year contract with the ship. Cole signed the same contract length, ensuring they'd continue working together. The crew had long since stopped gossiping about their relationship. It was obvious to everyone that they were close, that their friendship was deep and genuine, that they chose to spend their free time together and coordinated their schedules, and had inside jokes that made them laugh at random moments. If some people assumed it was romantic, well, Cole and Sierra had stopped trying to explain. The truth was more complex than labels allowed, profound trust and chosen companionship, and the kind of love that didn't need physical expression to be real. Do you think we're strange? Sierra asked one evening as they sat in Cole's quarters reviewing maintenance schedules and drinking warming beverage that Cole genuinely enjoyed now. Human and Terk, friends to a degree that supersedes typical professional collaboration, choosing each other repeatedly despite opportunities to part ways. Maybe, Cole admitted, but strange doesn't mean wrong, and honestly, I like our strange little friendship. I like that we built something meaningful from the most awkward possible beginning. I like that we chose each other when we didn't have to. I like those things too. Sierra's skin glowed warm amber. I like that vulnerability led to connection. That asking for help led to finding home. Home, Cole repeated, testing the word. Yeah, that's what this is. You're my home, Sierra. This friendship is where I belong. And you are mine. Sierra's certainty was absolute. For however long you will have me, Cole Thatcher, You are my home. Years passed in the comfortable rhythm of ship life. Cole and Sierra worked their shifts, maintained the Meridian Dawn systems, solved problems together with the efficiency of long practice. They renewed their contracts in sync, always ensuring they'd continue working together. They weathered crew changes and route modifications, and the occasional actual emergency that made that first contamination incident look minor by comparison. And through it all, they maintained their strange little rituals. Sierra's anxiety checks that were really just excuses to spend time together, shared meals of warming beverage and whatever the ship's galley was serving, long conversations in one or the other's quarters about everything and nothing. The comfortable silence of two people who'd learned each other's patterns so thoroughly that words became optional. 10 years after that first midnight emergency, Cole and Sierra sat in the observation deck watching stars slide past, both of them older now, more settled into themselves and each other. "Do you ever regret it?" Cole asked. "Turning down that diplomatic position, spending a decade on a ship instead of advancing your career?" Sierra was quiet for a moment, her skin shifting through contemplative colors. Then she smiled. "I regret nothing. This life, this strange, improbable life we built together, is exactly where I was meant to be." She looked at him. "Do you regret staying, turning down those opportunities on stations and settlements?" "Not even a little bit." Cole's answer was immediate. "Best decision I ever made was saying yes to a weird request at 3 in the morning. Second best decision was choosing to stay." "Then we are both foolish," Sierra said with satisfaction. "Foolish and happy." "Foolish and happy," Cole agreed. "I'll take it." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching stars and thinking about the strange path that had brought them here. Two lonely people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances, who'd built trust from vulnerability and friendship from awkwardness. The Meridian Dawn hummed around them, carrying them toward the next settlement, the next adventure, the next chapter of a life they'd chosen together. And in that moment, surrounded by stars and the quiet presence of genuine companionship, Cole thought about how sometimes the best things in life start with someone asking for help and someone else saying yes despite every reason to refuse. How sometimes home isn't a place but a person who understands. How sometimes the most profound love is the kind that doesn't need romance to be real. "Thank you," he said quietly. Sierra's skin glowed amber. "For what?" "For asking. That first night. For trusting me with your vulnerability. For giving me a reason to stay." "Thank you for saying yes," Sierra responded. "For helping despite discomfort, for choosing me repeatedly." She paused. "For being my home." "Always," Cole promised. "For as long as you'll have me." "Forever then," Sierra said simply, "because I am not letting you go." And in the observation deck of a ship traveling through the stars, two friends sat together in the comfortable silence of people who'd found exactly what they'd been looking for, even if they hadn't known they were searching. Home, connection, understanding.